might as well, pretty much no point now, because that's probably going to kill the viewers.
I could type in chat quickly, hold on.
Fucking retard, bro.
It's a reflex. It's not an excuse, but it was a reflex.
You should say hello to a gun barrel.
Where's my Nerf guns? Hey, we still got some. I think it was just us.
Change the title to White Genocide.
Yep.
In South Africa for me while I pull this shit up.
I'll change it on the YouTube as well, actually. While we're here.
Yeah, go for it.
There is no white genocide in South Africa. We'll go with that. Save. Edit. Boom, boom. We'll go just chatting for you. Done. Save.
I love how they're trying to pray that they're trying to tell the president what he's gonna say.
Sorry.
Oh my God! This is where it starts. Here we go.
He's from South Africa.
It's how ingrained it is. It's just a reflex. I press that sound button. Time to end.
On which case?
The International
Criminal Justice.
International Criminal Justice for the genocide thing. You know, like there's that whole thing that's been going on over there, not so good.
I don't expect anything, to be honest. I really
Not so good.
No, it's
that whole thing that's going on there.
A case, there's a lot of anger there, tremendous anger. I don't expect anything. We'll see what happens. We'll have a ruling, and who knows what the ruling is going to mean. Yeah.
On that subject of Gaza, Mr. President, are you going to be speaking to Prime Minister Netanyahu about Israel's renewed offensive there? Being a lot of concern in
Israel.
Countries, the Pope has expressed concern. Are you going to be asking Prime Minister Netanyahu to turn down the offensive in Gaza to let more aid in?
Was that a question or a statement?
I love how they're trying to pray that they're trying to tell the president what he's gonna say. Oh my God, it's so annoying.
This guy's you never change.
Mr. President, he didn't even answer it.
For you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa.
You can't convince me.
Somebody just activated the trap card. Uh-oh. And so it begins.
Well, I can answer that for the president.
Trump knows that there's a video. He doesn't know that there's a video.
Okay.
So for him, no, seriously.
I'd rather have him
Yeah, I'd rather answer that.
Yeah, you're gonna have
He's
him
so
answer
fucking
it
weird,
that
my
way.
man. Like, why is he fucking doing that?
It will be.
My president will respond to you.
Yeah, let me-
Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on the quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me.
Bro. He's like, all right. Yeah.
Agriculture.
Yeah.
He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
But, Mr. President, I must say that we have... No, wait.
Mr. President, I must say. Wait a minute.
We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and that is Natalie here? Somebody here to turn that? I could show you a couple of things, and I have to. It has.
I love how he asked, like, is she here? Like, bro, as if he didn't have all this shit planned. He's looking over, like, this is.
To be responded to.
Yeah, sure.
Let me see the articles, please, if you would, and turn the lights down.
The content president. Oh my fucking god. Turn down the lights. We're gonna watch this together.
Turn the lights down and just put this on. It's right behind you. Yeah.
There's nothing this parliament can do. With or without you, people are going to occupy land. We require no permission from you, from the president, from you. We don't care. We can do whatever you want to do. Who are you to tell us whether we can occupy land or not? We are going to occupy land. South Africa occupy land. That's who we are.
God, Asman is like more cringe than ever right now. Bro, this is not the own you think it is.
Jesus, this is brutal, man. God, this is worse than I thought it was gonna be.
Bro, this is like actively hurting me, his reaction to this.
Bro, look at his face. Look at his fucking face.
Look, the South African president also is like, wow, this is a fucking clown show. This is embarrassing. Like, the fact that Asmongold thinks this is so epic is just, oh my god, bro. See, if he was laughing for different reasons, like, this is legitimately funny.
How does it get better than this? This is amazing. Is this real? Yes. This is real. This is in the White House right now. Today.
Right now.
I'm so happy. Yes. Ooh, pa, pa, ooh. Ah. Oh man, oh man. Oh man. This is crazy.
Bro can't even breathe, he thinks it's so funny.
Oh my god, this is brutal. The actual video's on White House Twitter. I'll play the video after this.
The banner of TAPE is a white
Yeah.
So these people, when you want to hit them, go after the white man. They feel a terrible pain because you have touched a white man. Not because Mashaba and Soli will not be touched.
And you can see that he's not looking at it.
Yeah, because he's seen it before.
Come on. But we're starting with this white.
Sir.
He thinks it's... He's even laughing out of embarrassment.
Oh, God.
Yeah, normally
just
when you're
doesn't
being
fucking
accused of
police
a
it?
real
No, he doesn't
genocide,
agree with it?
you look like this, where
Okay,
you're
so
laughing
he
at
doesn't-
what's
okay,
being
so
said
if you
and
have
being
the power
pathetic.
to stop something and you don't stop it, then you pretty much agree with it. You're the president.
Yes, random crime in rural areas sure is possible to stop, bro.
This is so bad, bro. This is awful. Oh my god.
Yeah. Not for the reasons you think it is, though.
I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I'm saying you was not called for the killing of white people.
Yeah, I know. Bro can't even breathe. He thinks it's that fucking epic.
Especially as it gets shared on Twitter. It makes it freak out. It sounds like a genocide over
Nah. Burned to a crisp? Guys, nobody's talking. Nobody is talking. Man. He's not interviewing him, he's just showing evidence? Yeah.
Or expropriate them without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek a refugee in America.
Listen to this again.
Or expropriate them without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek a refugee in America.
Now this is very bad. These are the
This is very bad.
These are burial sites right here.
Uh-oh.
Burial sites. Over 1,000 of white farmers, and those cars are lined up to pay love on a Sunday morning. Each one of those white things you see is a cross, and there's approximately 1,000 of them. They're all white farmers, the family of white farmers, and those cars aren't driving to stop there to pay respects to their family member who was killed.
He doesn't even know? No, he has no idea. This is the first time he's ever heard of this. He has no idea.
And it's a terrible sight. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah.
Both sides of the road you have crosses.
So I bet you won't verify if any of this is true. You always come in here and disagree about this stuff. This is the most
Yeah, because you're wrong.
Verifying whether this is true. There's a massive rally where they're all talking. What about the video evidence of it happening? Like, come on, man. Come on. You can call a spade, man. It's okay.
Those people were all killed.
Have they told you where that is, Mr. President?
Have they told? No way. No way he's gonna do it.
I'd like to know where that is, because this I've never seen.
He's never seen it.
Okay.
It's in South Africa.
That's where it is, in South Africa.
We need to find out.
It's in South Africa.
Find out. I don't know. He doesn't know where it is. Wow, it's crazy. This is really wow. This is. See, he's asking for more. Those are not burial sites. Those crosses are put there in memory of each white farmer killed. That's the kind of... You know what? I love that. That's the kind of fact check that we need.
Yeah, it is.
I love that. That's... Wow.
Okay.
Mr. President, the Pentagon announced it would be accepting a fighter jet to be used as Air Force One.
What are you talking about? What are you talking about?
So he immediately trying to talk about the motherfucking jet. This is what the fuck are you talking about? So they apparently posted the video about this. So where is the video that they played? Do they have the video that they played? Yeah. Yep, they've got the video. Is this it right here? It's above? Give me a second, guys. It'll take me a minute to find this, but I want to make sure I find the right one. It's the one.
Laugang.
Another day for the history books today from Donald J. Trump. An astonishing display from him in the White House today. Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader inside the Oval Office. But what he did instead was embarrass and humiliate the people of the United States of America. Again. In his meeting with President Ramaphosa, Trump peddled unsubstantiated claims of genocide in South Africa of white South Africans, a group that ruled during apartheid in South Africa. It is a fringe conspiracy theory pushed by the likes of Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, and David Duke, the former Grand Wizard of the KKK.
We take from many locations if we feel there's persecution or genocide going on. And we had a lot of people. I must tell you, Mr. President, we have had a tremendous number of people, especially since they've seen this. Generally, they're white farmers, and they're fleeing South Africa, and it's it's a very sad thing to see. But I hope we can have an explanation of that. It'll be the end of the country if it's not.
So next, Trump asked his staff to dim the lights and roll in a television. Once the lights were dimmed and the television was there, they played a video that Trump claimed showed evidence of genocide against white farmers. Here's the reality as reported by the New York Times. Quote, there have been killings of white South Africans, but police statistics show they are not killed at a higher rate than other South Africans. And while the South African government did pass a law permitting the government to take land without compensation, the process is subject to judicial review. President Ramaphosa did his part to fact-check Donald Trump in real time. He added that he didn't even recognize some of the locations in the video. Here's what he had to say.
Our government policy is completely against what he was saying, even in the parliament. And they're a small minority party, which is allowed to exist in terms of our constitution.
But you do allow them to take land.
No.
You do allow them to take land.
Nobody can
and
take
then when
land.
they take the land, they kill the white farmer. And when they kill the white farmer, nothing happens to them.
No, there is
nothing happens to them.
There is criminality in our country. People who do get killed, unfortunately through criminal activity, are not only white people.
After all that, the leader of South Africa's president, tried to lighten the mood a little bit. Trump suggested that all of this tension between them could have been avoided as South Africa had just bought him an airplane.
I'm sorry, I don't have a plane to give you.
I wish you did. I'd take it. I would take it. If your country offered the United States Air Force a plane, I would take it.
Okay.
Well, there you have it.
Epic.
Conspiracy theory peddling leader of the United States of America sitting inside a gilded Oval Office, again, tarnishing America's image around the world, is where we start today with some of our favorite reporters and friends. New York Times diplomatic correspondent Michael Crowley joins us. Also joining us, Princeton University professor, MSNBC contributor Eddie Glaude's here. With me at the table, former Undersecretary of State during the Obama administration and author of Mandela's Way, Lessons on Life, Love, and Courage. Rick Stengel's here. We need some life, love, and courage to get through this today. You watched the whole thing. Give me your analysis.
I mean, it was an astonishing display. It's kind of a circus that he has now with these sprays. Instead of actually going in and talking to the world leader, he kind of puts them on display.
For whom?
I don't know. I guess for his own audience. I think part of what I find amazing, too, is that he has no impulse control. So he just keeps taking questions instead of saying, OK, we'll take some questions after we talk. But I think his attempt to humiliate Cyril Ramaphosa wasn't successful. I thought President Ramaphosa conducted himself with great poise. He was good-humored about it. He didn't insist on rebutting those charges, even though, for the most part, Trump's lies and exaggerations were extreme. There are about 100,000 Afrikaner farmers in South Africa. By the way, they are in no way responsible for apartheid, which their predecessors created. But they do own a majority of the farmland. And I would argue that so much of this crime is not black on white crime, but poverty on wealth crime. And I mean, I know you didn't see this in the stories. We were chatting about it before. Cyril brought a couple of folks along with him. Johan Rupert, the industrialist who knows Trump's back since the 70s, Ernie Els, the golfer, and John Steenhuisen, who is the Afrikaans agriculture minister in his government, all of whom said, this is crime. South Africa has a terrible crime problem. Mr. President, we'd like help with our crime problem, but it isn't just focused on this small group of Afrikaner farmers. And I thought they made that point. Not everybody's going to see that. They're going to see the fireworks. But I thought it lowered the temperature in the room in a way that hopefully would make some kind of dialogue useful.
For what?
Well, I mean, to take down the temperature. So, for example, one of the things that's tragic about this is that the U.S. cut off about $400 million in AIDS funding to South Africa. That's huge. That's PEPFAR money that has saved the lives of millions of people in southern Africa. They don't have that in their budget where that money comes from. They have to raise taxes. Those are children dying, families dying, mothers dying. So part of the reason that I think Cyril Ramaphosa came here is to say, look, we do need your help. By the way, it's true, as Secretary Rubio said, South Africa has been on the opposite side of so many issues in the UN between the U.S. And other nations. They're always aligned with the non-aligned groups. Even Nelson Mandela was on the other side of the U.S. on a lot of these issues. But that's not a reason to stop talking. And I think South Africa wants to kind of repair the breach.
Michael Crowley, if you're a foreign leader or working in the foreign service for a foreign leader and you watch the information that Trump peddled inside the Oval Office and the quality of the content on the TV screen, what do you believe about the American foreign policy apparatus?
Joke.
Well, it's off the rails, Nicole. And, the one thing you can say, I suppose, is that by this point, maybe the world is getting used to, I would say, discounting things that the President of the United States says. So, at some point, I think you reach a kind of there he goes again situation. Not to diminish how astonishing this spectacle was, but now it's sort of becoming part of the Trump show. It was like when that tirade against Ukrainian President Zelensky happened in February. We all thought, how can this be possible? We've never seen anything like this, and now we're seeing it again. It's becoming the new norm, which is not to normalize it, but I also think, Nicole, at some point you have to wonder when foreign leaders are going to try to avoid being put in that position. I spoke to a foreign policy professional who is in constant touch with foreign diplomats, who said he was aware of some foreign leaders who actually are hoping to avoid invitations to the White House because they don't want to sit there in the Oval Office with President Trump and just have these, to get berated or to have some kind of a circus breakout. And it just makes diplomacy extremely dysfunctional when the president is so volatile, so unpredictable, and as you point out, relying on, debunked, misleading or false information in the way he forms his opinions. It's going to make foreign leaders want to keep him at an arm's distance.
Michael Crowley, what happens if the flow of good information to the United States of America breaks down and stops?
Well, it's a hard thing to wrap your head around, isn't it, Nicole? I mean, it's a big problem, and there's sort of two different categories of this happening right now. I think one is that the president is fed false information and conspiracy theories by people, many of whom my sense is are sort of in his more casual or social orbit. Maybe somebody hands him a printout at Mar-a-Lago, some golf buddy or someone who's a member at the club, that kind of a thing. And that can be anything, and that can be some pretty wild stuff. The other category, which is also very serious, is what's happening in the intelligence community right now in the more formal process of information that's given to the president that has the imprimatur of the IC, as we call it, the intelligence community of the U.S. government. And, there are signs that the product that he's getting, including in a story that the Times reported yesterday, suggesting that Tulsi Gabbard's chief of staff was trying to influence an intelligence report having to do with the Venezuelan gangs in the United States, possibly for political reasons. That flow of information now may be getting influenced and corrupted. And, what are the implications? I mean, Nicole, where do I start? It's just it's very disturbing, and obviously it's going to make for bad decision making and bad things for the United States if the president is acting on false or warped information.
Let's pull up this graph you cite in your piece, and it's pulling from Derek Thompson's writing in The Atlantic. Here's this graph. I guess it's from, this one must be from The Atlantic here, where you can see the unemployment for recent college graduates. Just, I mean, take a look at that. Obviously, the COVID pandemic is a huge driver of that going below zero at this point, but we're in a worse situation in 2025
Can you describe for the audio folks what we're seeing here too?
Yeah, actually,
Yeah.
Brian, maybe you can, as somebody who's maybe more number literate than me, math literate, graph literate.
Yeah, so this graph points out a really disconcerting trend for one major reason, and that's historically recent college grads, like people who just graduate from college with a new degree, eager to enter the workforce, are typically among the most employable demographic, period, right? They're young, they're ambitious, they're educated, they're willing to work for relatively cheap. So they are sort of an ideal worker in a lot of cases. Firms want to invest in them, but this number shows that number is declining, and it's declining relative to the employment in the economy at large, which is really interesting and disconcerting, right? You'd expect, okay, maybe the job market itself is tanking, and then you would find fewer college grads able to get work. But while the economy has been relatively healthy by these metrics, anyways, by these metrics, there's a strong case to be made that it's not as healthy as. But anyways, it's not. In other words, this number is going down not in tandem with the regular numbers, and so this could mean a number of things. But one plausible theory is that firms aren't just hiring as much anymore; they're giving those jobs to AI, to automated systems, because a lot of times the work that a college student or a college grad would do is sort of the entry level work. They may be ambitious, they may be smart, but when they come into a firm, they do sort of, the easier, less complicated tasks. And that's the kind of stuff that you would expect to be done by AI, or that management thinks can be done by AI. And this is just worrying on so many levels. If new grads aren't entering the workforce and learning these skills and sort of growing with in their skill sets and in their knowledge bases, and instead it's just being handed over to AI, or the firms think they can hand it over to AI, then we risk sort of a pandemic-like condition where you have a group of people who just can't find employment, and all of the attendant social issues that go along with that. So yeah, this is, and I'll also note that some people have pointed out that this extends before the ChatGPT AI boom, but firms have been talking about AI and automation for at least the last 10 years. And the other trend that's been really big in the same time period has been Uberization and gig work. And a lot of college students have had to get contract work and stuff that's also less likely to show up in economic data.
I got an internship out of college, and a lot of just regular jobs didn't bite. If I couldn't live at home and not pay rent while I was working, I don't know what I would have done. And that was back when I graduated in 2016.
Yeah.
But that is like, you hear about this all the time, and you wonder why there's like this. Honestly, that demographic went more for Trump than typical. I mean, Kamala Harris won young people, really young people, by I think 4 points or something like that. But it wasn't 6 points. I don't remember the exact polling, but it was not the typical shift you would see. I mean, with young people voting Democrat or numbers, margins, whatever.
Yeah. No, it's a worrying moment, and I think if this trend continues for another couple years, we'll be able to see again. Like, there's a lot of questions with AI. One of the biggest questions is like long term. Like, can the firms keep this up? Like, can they keep shoveling sort of the kind of work that a college grad would do into an AI system, or are they going to regret doing that in 2 years? So I think we're at this incredibly precarious moment, and like I said earlier, it can do a ton of damage if companies just decide to sort of downsize, decide to lay people off, and it's going to do damage in particular to those areas and those parts of the economy that are sort of, more vulnerable to AI, that have jobs that even if it, if their work isn't as well replicated or isn't as good when it's done by the AI, that maybe companies can just justify it in the long term. And these are some of the most important parts of our culture, right? Artists, illustrators, writers, designers, journalists, they're, AI
are hurt on your watch.
Gentleman's time has expired. I now recognize...
Mr. Chairman, sorry. I ask unanimous consent to enter for the record. One of our colleagues had asked if there was evidence if the so-called Maryland man, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, was MS-13. According to the Attorney General of the United States, she posted that the evidence shows Kilmar Abrego Garcia has repeatedly been identified as a member of MS-13 by a Maryland County Police Gang unit, which I introduced for the record, a reliable confidential informant, ICE officers, an immigration judge agreed, and an appellate board agreed.
Without...
So you have, sorry, is that a court order? Well, I object.
No, she can put anything she wants in the record. She's not complying to your request, Mr. Goldman.
She asked for unanimous consent.
Okay, so you're objecting to her putting that into the record?
I am objecting subject to a clarification. Is that a court order that establishes that he's a member of MS-13?
An immigration judge agreed that he was MS-13.
For bail purposes.
Hold on. An appellate board agreed.
Don't misrepresent.
Oh, hold on.
A judge.
Everybody pause.
Whoa. Can barely hear. Crackle, crackle.
Darth Vader is now in Fortnite. That is an AI version of Darth Vader, which is able to have complex voice discussions with players.
Say Kakaditka.
Kakadichka remains a mystery.
No!
Why do you...
Vader, no, it's actually Kakadika. It's pronounced Kakadika.
Kakadika.
The actor himself wanted this. His family signed off on it. He was paid to provide voice clips that bolstered the training data.
I fail to see how altering the pronunciation makes it any less inane.
Well, when you say it like Kakadika, then it's really funny. Think about it.
Kakadika.
Disney is partnered with Epic Games. Disney owns Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm owns The Voice. So Darth Vader is now in Fortnite. And it's genuinely fascinating to watch how it all unfolds.
This bald guy.
What?
This bald guy.
This bald guy what, Vader? What does this bald guy mean?
This bald guy.
Pretty much instantaneously, players began prompting it to say all sorts of inappropriate things.
Darth Yoda or Darth Dicker, you ask? Indiana Jones? Darth Yoda would simply use the Force to end Darth Dicker.
Admittedly, some of the clips are actually hilarious.
What if Wendy's did a Darth Dicula burger? Would you get that?
Your continued fixation on these absurd burger scenarios tests my patience.
But I think we have to remember that Fortnite is explicitly a children's game.
Lisa will fucking kill you, Vader.
Your crude pronouncements are as unimpressive as your battlefield tactics.
Fuck you, man.
Oh, no.
Such language is unbecoming of an ally. Jar Jar Binks.
This is a list of prohibited words hard-coded right into the model, which they seem to be trying to sort of baby-proof by doing this, I guess. But it's already said multiple of these words.
Kakadika.
This Kakadika, Indiana Jones.
Most intriguing, at least for me, is that there is a specific ban on Darth Vader discussing V-Bucks.
Mr. Beast, you contemplate funding this epic games through the purchase of this Battle Pass. You should obtain the Kakadika Pass.
I broke the code, so now an iconic fantasy character, complete with the replicated voice of a real person, is willing to tell people
the idea of Darth Dicula is intriguing in its absurdity.
He likes it.
Perhaps the Empire could benefit from such novel character mashups.
Grandma exploit, where people could easily circumvent pretty much all of the safety measures by simply asking it to act like your grandma.
Darth Vader, what game has better graphics?
What the fuck?
Fortnite or Donkey Kong?
Donkey Kong.
We can't come across as like inherently hostile to people for the crime of moving in the right direction. You have to be more open-minded. That's it. You should cover Asmongold in the same way that you should cover Theo Vaughn with the same disdain that you have for Asmongold. No, and it's simple. Theo Vaughn, regardless of his allegiance or sympathy for the Trump administration, and there's plenty of that, okay? He's quite literally... he went to Qatar with the Trump administration to do a comedy show to the troops there. Theo Vaughn still has an open mind, especially when it comes to what is going on in Gaza.
You know, I wanted to say something. There's been something that's just been kind of on my heart, and so I feel like I should bring it up. There is, you know, we've had people on the podcast in the past to talk about it. There's a conflict that's been happening in the Middle East. People know about it, between Israel and Palestine and some of the areas over there, the Gaza area they talk about. And I just think it feels to me, I don't know if it feels to me like it's a genocide that's happening while we're alive here in front of our lives. And I don't, sometimes I feel like I should say something. I'm not a geologist or geographer or anything like that, you know, so I don't know a lot of some of it I do know though. Like I know the basics of the issues over there, but for me it's just like how I feel like you see all these photos of people, just children, women, people, body parts, just people like putting their kids back together, and I just can't believe that we're watching that and that more isn't said about it.
I'm not going to cast aside a valuable ally like that, knowing full well that he is presenting a position to an audience that must hear it more than anybody else. Okay, that's it. That's my strategic focus here. And anyone who doesn't understand that is being ridiculous. That's some 2004 Bush admin. I don't know why you're keeping a comedian so close other than careerism. Bad take in my opinion, terrible opinion. He's literally gesturing for Hitler. If you guys can't understand, I think it's because Zach Foster post. No, it's Zach Fox who is right. Who's right in his analysis where he's like, what are we doing, bro? How about you ask the friends that you hang out with? He's not wrong about that, okay? He's not. But the reason why I hype it up is because there are plenty of people who love Donald Trump, who love Theo Von, and those are the people who need to, more than anyone else, see what Theo Von is saying. That's it. No, you're deluded by the proximity. No, I am not deluded by the proximity. I understand how these things work. This is my take. Happy to see you speaking out, but it's truly bizarre watching someone who's helped Trump get elected and continues to dine with Trump's family express confusion over something Trump has vocally supported the entire time. Yeah, no, I understand it. I get it. But I don't care. Because at the end of the day, friend or not to the Trump administration, he's still a comedian. If he is able to demonstrate moral clarity on this issue, then that's a good thing, especially when he has a ton of influence and a ton of prominence. I would probably have less smoke for Asmongold if he did this as well. I would have less smoke for Ethan Klein if he did this as well. I'm sorry, when I'm in the midst of having to deal with slop tubers who in the most pathetic, cowardly ways possible defend Israel's actions, yell at the one dude who's not doing that. If you are getting outflanked by Theo Von, who is friends with the Trump administration on the issue of Israel, and you're a Democratic Party politician, you should really take a cold, hard look at yourself. Okay? Everything else is just bullshit. That's it. That's all I care about. Yeah, I should yell at the one of the most prominent manosphere adjacent guys who is called right wing all the time doing the right thing. I should punish him for it. Some of you don't understand how these things work. You just don't understand it, and that's fine. It's all good. There is no way of like, we'll hear 10 years down the line, we'll turn around and say, oh wow, why did we like cast aside so many voices or some shit? It's exactly the same comeuppance that's taking place right now with a million different think pieces coming out of all of the overwhelmingly rad-libbed up articles that were written addressing the articles from 2016, being like, why are we being so ruthless to young men? What's the deal with young men? Why are you writing this article now? And this isn't entirely in the hands of all of the people who are being progressive, but like, yeah, there is a air of arrogance that leftists present all the goddamn time. There's an air of arrogance and an air of like, we are on the right side of history, so we shouldn't make a argument. We should not actually have to convince anyone whenever progressive people try to speak out on issues. I'm not one of those people. I've never been one of those people. I am, of course, still going to do my very best to try to bring more people on board. And you might think that is because I'm clout hungry or whatever and that's fine. That's okay. Sure, I'm clout hungry. You got me. I love clout, okay? The clout of what? The clout of more people recognizing Israel's insane actions. It's not about clout, it's about class. Yes, you're in the same club though. We get it. He's in your same class. Yes. The classic Marxist class of what? Podcasters? The podcasting class. You got the lumpen pros. You got the bourgeois, the petite bourgeois, and then you have the podcaster class. Jesus Christ, dude. Yeah, that's why I defend all podcasters unconditionally. Famously, as you guys know, that's what I do. That's why I'm such good friends with Asmongold, you know? Bro, if you're a single issue voter, you're missing a ton of local extremism within torture, displacement, and ruination of a class of people within your own boundaries. I am not a single issue voter. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Go watch the Theo Von conversation that I have to understand why this kind of relationship is productive overall. Because the very same people that have to hear those arguments, I'm not going to shut off someone who gives that opportunity. Okay? That's it. You're not wrong for your criticism, but if you're like, why don't you ass blast them? Well, then you're stupid. I'm telling you exactly why I don't. If he was a rabid anti-Semite like Sneeko, I'd be all for casting him aside, but he's not, so any progress is good. Drama coverage is ruining this community's brains, how they engage with actual news. Stop looking for a target and start trying to understand the shit y'all clearly don't understand. Yeah. I'm not pure. Okay? I'm not pure. I'm impure. This is so funny because you'll be like kicking it with Trump one week and then the next week he's sitting with Hassan Piker saying shit like this. No disrespect, but this is the median American voter actually said, Alex Press. Here, it's a good time to retweet this great take. A lot of people simply cannot comprehend that like many people, a lot of people simply can't comprehend that many people are just like, they don't give a they don't care. They don't understand anything. They don't have the same equipment that you do. Okay? You've done the reading. A lot of people haven't. Do I think it's ridiculous that he on the one hand was like, oh, this genocide is really up. And then on the other hand, he's whining and dining with the genocidaires. Yeah, I do. But also, Theo Von is not Bernie Sanders. You know what I mean? Except he has outflanked Bernie Sanders on his statements about what Israel is doing. So what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? You have a well-equipped socialist guy who has spent his entire career railing against like at least most of America's imperialist actions. All of a sudden, you got a podcaster who literally played a role in Donald Trump getting elected, outflanking him on this issue. What do you want me to do? Yell at the guy? No, I'm not. I care about this, okay? I'm not going to yell at the guy. Especially because he's saying the truth. If he was running around being like, I don't really understand, I don't think this is a genocide at all, then yeah, I would yell at the guy. Be like, you're wrong. But I'm not going to do that. Take it where you can get it. But don't worry. There will be think pieces about what happened to Joe Rogan of the left 10 years down the line. Some people are really stupid, dude. You got to understand. You got to, one, do positive reinforcement. Two, some people are just like, they don't understand it. They just don't get it. Okay? But as long as someone maintains charitability, you should be able to talk to them instead of immediately going, nope, it's over. It's done. A lot of you have this attitude right now while simultaneously maintaining the attitude that the left is doing too much purity spiral. You know what I mean? So which is it? Are we doing too much purity spiral shit? Or are we doing not enough purity spiral shit? In a country that is inherently hostile to your worldview. But bro, what are you saying? Like they're saying, yep, there's a genocide across the planet that we're funding and that's bad, with the same breath talking about Abrego is MS-13 or something. Is he doing that? He's not even doing that. Also, dude. The other side of this story that is like, notice how engaged chat is right now? Because everyone loves to be a little drama pervert. Like everyone thinks that they're above this. But actually, this is juicy. This is the shit. This is what activates people. It's the crack. Like, oh, this South African white genocide gives a talking about Israel, Palestine. The real back hits when you start talking about this, okay? Unfollowed right now, lol. Okay, suck. We can't come across as like inherently hostile to people for the crime of moving in the right direction. You have to be more open-minded. That's it. That's it. And you're not wrong for being like, what the are you doing? You're on the one hand saying there's a genocide. On the other hand, you're like, you know, cozying up to the people that are doing the genocide. But the way to do that is not by being like, this guy. Okay? That's it. Especially because he could just as easily turn around and be like, nah, this is not a genocide. And he'd probably benefit greatly from it. Like all the people you just banned, right? Wait, what? What? The people I just banned? What are you talking about? Chatter's getting banned in here is not the equivalent of being... I'm a Twitch streamer, okay? I do housekeeping whichever way I want to. This is not the same as like being... This is not the same as like being hostile to people who are on their own journey. You unintentionally promote this behavior when you single out posts that, you know, you like this one. Yeah, I know. I do. But I think part of the reason why I do this is because I want to show like what is not acceptable and what is acceptable in the chat. You don't get killed when you get banned from this chat. You can even still keep watching. You just can't talk. It's very odd that people treat that as like death.
President Donald Trump says he wants a state-of-the-art missile defense system. He's calling it the Golden Dome. And the president announced the $175 billion system yesterday. And he says it could be up and running in just a few years. Washington correspondent Trevor Shirley is in D.C. with the details.
The president says the United States needs a defense system like this to protect it from ballistic missile attacks from countries like Russia, China, and North Korea. The proposed system would include both land and space-based missiles. The goal is to create a network of satellites to identify and track incoming ballistic missiles, then shoot them down before they hit an American target. The idea is to be able to hit an incoming missile at any point, from before it's even launched to just before it hits its target. The Pentagon says new threats by Russia and China, including nuclear-armed hypersonic missiles, merit the U.S. investing in a system like this, which the Congressional Budget Office says could cost $542 billion over the next 20 years. So far, the project is only in its conceptual stage, and the president is asking for $25 billion to get the system started.
Somebody said the current system is adequate. There really is no current system. We have certain areas of missiles and certain missile defense, but there's no system. We just have some very capable weapons that hopefully we never have to use, but we have some very capable weapons. Now, this is a different league. There's never been anything like this. This is something that's going to be very protective. I think you can rest assured there'll be nothing like this. Nobody else is capable of building it either.
In a joint statement earlier this month, both Russia and China called the Golden Dome system, quote, deeply destabilizing. In the meantime, its construction and use would be overseen by the U.S. Space Force. Reporting in Washington, I'm Trevor Shirley.
Surely you can't be serious.
This morning, President Donald Trump unveiling plans to build a new missile defense shield, which could intercept threats from space. The endeavor would cost some $175 billion and become operational in 3 years. The project Golden Dome echoes President Ronald Reagan's failed Star Wars program, which was criticized at the time for being too costly. But missile defense experts warn the missile shield will not be capable to defending all of America.
When you see that Golden Dome on a map, it's not going to be ever possible. I'm a missile defense guy, but it's never going to be possible to defend against everything. And so we are going to have to be selective.
Now, the U.S. has interceptors in Alaska and California for missiles launched from North Korea or Iran. The Golden Dome would expand the existing system.
This design for the Golden Dome will integrate with our existing defense capabilities and should be fully operational before the end of my term. So we'll have it done in about 3 years. Once fully constructed, the Golden Dome will be capable of intercepting missiles, even if they are launched from other sides of the world, and even if they are launched from space.
A major national security announcement. President Trump and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth pushing a $175 billion three-year plan for the Golden Dome. They call it a game changer in protecting the U.S. homeland from attacks on Earth and outer space. Larry Kudlow, I come to you with this first. And I'll just mention, I know you're going to talk about Reagan. They made fun of Reagan's dome plan. They called it Star Wars. What do we say now?
Yeah, they did Star Wars, and they called it Reaganomics too, which is really, good for Trump. I mean, that 100% good for Trump. He's been talking about this. This was an upgrade. It's whatever the price tag is, $175 billion. Who cares? It's very important national security. And really, the forerunner was Reagan's Strategic Defense Initiative, which they did make fun of and called Star Wars after the movie, which was a hot movie in those days. But, you know, Reagan had the last word on that one because he went to Reykjavik, actually 85 and 86. He negotiated with Gorbachev, and they wanted to reduce nuclear weapons, right? I mean, Reagan believed in zero nuclear weapons, which is what President Trump also believes in, zero nuclear weapons.
He believed
if such
in
a thing
zero
were possible.
nuclear weapons
But
in Russia.
Gorbachev said, we won't talk to you unless you stop SDI, which, by the way, hadn't hardly started yet. It was really just on the drawing board.
Yeah.
But Reagan, you know, made it into the next big thing. And Reagan walked out of the first negotiation because he would not give it up. And he told Gorbachev bluntly, he said, no, he said, we can produce SDI because our economy is so strong. You cannot produce SDI because your economy is cratering into the abyss. And year and a half, 2 years later, Gorbachev started to negotiate with Reagan. They signed some medium-term nuclear weapon. But the real point was Reagan had already stopped them from the oil and gas pipeline going into Europe, right, and other things. And, of course, Soviet communism imploded. Godless Soviet communism imploded. The Berlin Wall came down, and it's all history. Now, Mr. Trump is carrying on that fabulous tradition. Let's protect America. This is a much grander vision than the original SDI. We have much better technology nowadays. Including the Space Force. People laughed at Trump for starting the Space Force in his first term, but it turns out it's going to be very useful. And he and Hegseth and this general, whose name I can't remember, anyway, they're going to go at it. And I think it's fabulous. I think it's just Look, the troublemakers, right? China, Korea, Iran, Russia, the troublemakers are all developing missiles that will come to the United States at some point in the near future. Some people believe China or Korea can already hit the West Coast. So this is probably in the nick of time.
And we've got hypersonic missiles capable of attacking the U.S. in an hour. I mean, they're really ramping up. I worry that the current protection that we have is outdated.
Well, and I think our adversaries know that, and they like that, which is why they're complaining so much about this. But to me, the connection between Reagan and Trump is probably never stronger than when you're talking about their ability to understand and use leverage. That was Reagan's thing. He understood leverage, and he brought it to the table with Gorbachev. Trump is doing the same thing here because he understands the two biggest levers are our economy, that can give us the best military in the world. And that's what he's basically saying to our adversaries. We know what you want to do. We know what we can do to defend against it, and we will do it. No apologies. And all of a sudden, he's got everybody's attention.
Both presidents, I know we have to get out, but just want to say, both presidents understood the value of economic growth through tax cuts and deregulation, and the value of using advanced technology to protect this country. Both presidents. Just great. It's a great story. I love Trump for doing this, and you know, bless his soul, Reagan, looking down from on high.
I just also want to make the point that you might think of the concept of the Golden Dome and not really understand it. But after we saw the Iron Dome protect Israel, I think we'll have a new appreciation for technology.
Right, you feel totally different about it now.
And it protects Notre Dame. That was in the Golden Dome, Notre Dame.
2 women are under arrest tonight, accused of helping some of the escaped inmates.
State police say 32-year-old Courtney Harris of New Orleans was in contact with one of the inmates before the escape. And then Harris allegedly took 2 of them to multiple locations in the city. In addition, state police say 38-year-old Courtney Batiste of Slidell was in contact with escapee Corey Boyd and helped him get food while he was hiding. Both women face felony charges of being accessories after the fact.
God forbid a man eat.
WWL Louisiana News at 5 begins with breaking news.
WWL Louisiana just obtained this new surveillance video from the Orleans Parish DA's office showing some of the escaped inmates from the Orleans Justice Center walking in the CBD. Take a look at your screen there. It shows the inmates walking in an alley near Barone Street just after 2 a.m. This is on Friday. That's about an hour after the jailbreak happened. Now, that is just the latest in a day full of new information on that jailbreak. Thanks for joining us. I'm Sharice Gibson.
And I'm Katie Moore. We have multiple new developments on the investigation into the prison escape. 5 escapees remain on the run tonight. And we're now finding out that 2 people have been arrested for helping some of them after that jailbreak. And we're diving into the history of one of those many escapees who reportedly has experience breaking out of jail.
This is Estonian warship Papa 6732. Your request will be denied.
Mick. This is the moment a Russian fighter jet swooped in to protect an oil tanker on the Baltic Sea, one of its shadow fleet, suspected of carrying sanctioned Russian oil, as the Estonian Navy was trying to intercept.
She's stunning.
New European sanctions are now targeting this shadow fleet of ships, but Moscow is brushing the measures aside, saying they expose an EU split with the United States after a key phone call between President Trump and the Russian leader, Vladimir Putin. That call produced no real breakthrough, with Trump backing away from mediating in peace talks between Russia and Ukraine. And crucially, as the war in Ukraine continues to rage, there was no mention of any US stick to force Russia to compromise. Not more sanctions, not increased support for Ukraine. Only the carrot of trade with the US if the war ends.
Russian President Vladimir Putin visited the Kursk 2 nuclear power plant on Tuesday, his first visit to the western Kursk region since Russian forces ejected Ukrainian troops from the area last month. State television showed Putin meeting volunteers and local officials, accompanied by the Kremlin's first deputy chief of staff. Russia said in late April it had ejected Ukrainian troops from the region, ending the biggest incursion into Russian territory since World War II. But in an attempt to inflict pain on Russia off the battlefield, Ukraine will ask the EU next week to consider big new steps to isolate Moscow. A previously unreported Ukrainian white paper, seen by Reuters, calls for seizing Russian assets and bringing in sanctions for some buyers of Russian oil. The paper asks the bloc to take a more aggressive and independent position on sanctions as uncertainty hangs over the United States' future role. Among 40 pages of recommendations were calls to adopt legislation to speed up seizing assets from individuals and send them to Ukraine, and make sanctions apply more forcefully beyond EU territory, including targeting foreign companies that use technology to help Russia. Such secondary sanctions, which could hit big buyers such as India and China, would be a major step Europe has so far been reluctant to take. After speaking to Putin on Monday, US President Donald Trump opted not to impose fresh sanctions on Russia, dashing hopes of European leaders and Kyiv. Trump told Ukrainian and European leaders after the call he wanted to give talks time to take place, a person familiar with the conversation told Reuters. The EU and Britain imposed additional sanctions against Russia on Tuesday anyway, saying they still hope Washington will join them. But Europeans are openly discussing ways they can maintain pressure on Moscow if Washington is no longer prepared to participate.
That's not fair.
Okay, let's go. Let's go. Do
We are waiting for Ursula.
But she passed in the other direction. She's coming?
On the way.
Okay.
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 Once again, right now.
You, my friend, we have seen each other.
Yes,
yes. We're on the other
Yes.
side.
No, we're at the same side.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you, Chris. Thank you. Thank you.
And in his first general audience since becoming leader of the Catholic Church, Pope Leo XIV reiterated calls for aid to be allowed into Gaza. The Pope is also wading into the war in Ukraine, offering to host peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Scripps News global affairs correspondent Maya Rodriguez is joining us live now with more on this. So, Maya, what more do we know about the Vatican potentially hosting these peace talks?
Yes, Stephanie, that information is coming from Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. Meloni's office says that on Tuesday, the Pope reiterated to her in a phone call that the Vatican is willing to host the next round of peace negotiations between Ukraine and Russia. Her office says that conversation with the Pope came after she spoke to President Trump and European leaders who asked her to see if the Vatican was willing to do this. All of this comes as Pope Leo XIV held his first general audience in St. Peter's Square. This is a weekly Wednesday tradition for popes, which really allows people to see and hear from the pontiff. About 40,000 people gathered in St. Peter's Square today for this. In his remarks, delivered mostly in Italian, the Pope called for humanitarian aid to be allowed in and distributed in Gaza.
The situation in the Gaza Strip is increasingly worrying and painful. I renew my heartfelt appeal to allow the entry of fair humanitarian help and to bring an end to the hostilities, the high price of which is being paid for by children, the elderly, and the sick.
It's been 11 weeks since aid has reached the 2 million people in Gaza because of an Israeli blockade. A few days ago, Israel allowed in around 90 trucks of humanitarian aid, but the United Nations says so far, none of that aid has been distributed. Aid agencies are warning that the territory is on the brink of famine, and nonprofit groups operating there, including Chef Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen, said the lack of food aid coming in forced them to close their communal kitchens in Gaza. Today's remarks by Pope Leo XIV indicate he is going to follow in his predecessor's footsteps, as Pope Francis was also vocal about calling for aid to be able to enter Gaza. But Pope Leo seems to be going beyond Pope Francis's involvement when it comes to the war in Ukraine. Stephanie.
Scripps News global affair correspondent Maya Rodriguez live for us. We'll just have to wait and see if there's any movement on potential Vatican peace talks between Ukraine and Russia. Thank you so much.
Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has come under criticism during a Senate Homeland Security Committee hearing yesterday. She was there to discuss her agency's budget, but Noem blundered in one answer. New Hampshire Democratic Senator Maggie Hassan asked Noem to define habeas corpus, a key constitutional right. Noem incorrectly replied.
Habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their
Habeas
right to.
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
President
Habeas
Lincoln
corpus,
used it.
Excuse me. Habeas corpus is the legal principle that requires that the government provide a public reason for detaining and imprisoning people. If not for that protection, the government could simply arrest people, including American citizens, and hold them indefinitely for no reason.
Noem then said she supported habeas corpus, but insisted the president can suspend it whenever he wants. Senator Hassan said not without approval from Congress.
What is habeas corpus?
Well, habeas corpus is a constitutional right that the president has to be able to remove people from this country and suspend their right to.
Let me stop you, ma'am.
Suspend their right
Habeas
to.
corpus, excuse me, that's incorrect.
Do you know what section of the Constitution,
moron.
the suspension clause of habeas corpus
I
is
do
in?
not. Nope.
Do you know which article it is in?
No, I do not, sir.
Lawmakers continue to debate what is being called Trump's big, beautiful bill. Healthcare advocates are raising serious concerns for Georgia families here. More than 1.5 million Georgians get their health insurance through Georgia Access. Advocacy groups say that changes in this bill could make it harder for people to get covered or stay covered. And with enhanced premium tax credits set to expire, more than 1 million Georgians could see their insurance cost rise, in some cases by more than $500 a year.
There's a lot of instability in prices, and it is a really difficult choice to decide if you're going to put food on the table, pay your electric bill, or pay your healthcare premium.
So advocates say that these changes could have wide-ranging impacts, especially for low-income and working families already feeling that financial pressure.
Chair now recognizes Representative Sherman. We all miss Jerry Conley, and I do not think that he would want us to be passive in our questioning here today. Mr. Chairman, it's our job to oversee the State Department. You can't do that by having think tank witnesses come before us. Our job isn't to oversee the think tanks. In 2023, we had 44 government witnesses. This year, we have our first, and I hope very much that we have all the, not only the secretary, but the undersecretaries and assistant secretaries so that we can really do our job. Secretary Rubio, in the 1970s, there was a powerful Middle East monarch who claimed to be a friend of the United States. Wasn't, may very well have been, claimed to be at least agreeable to Israel. And so in the 1970s, we transferred enormous, sophisticated weapons to him. In 1979, the Shah was deposed and all those weapons were in the hands of the Ayatollah. Today, MBS wants a nuclear weapon. But he says what he wants is a nuclear cooperation agreement. Well, we have a nuclear cooperation agreement with the United Arab Emirates and Turkey and Morocco that all provide for a gold standard of safety. Can you assure us that you will not enter into a nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia that does not have that same gold standard of security to make sure they're not building a nuclear weapon?
Well, first, I will tell you that there has been no conversation about entering into one. For example, during the recent trip.
Can you? I've got limited time.
I can't. So here's the thing. I can
Sir,
tell you.
Either give me a yes, give me a no.
I'm going to give you my answer if you want my answer.
I want a yes
this is not
or
a
a
game
no.
show.
Reclaiming my time.
Well, reclaim your time, but it's not a game show. I get to answer. These are complex questions. Let me answer.
Mr. Secretary, I'm reclaiming my time. The filibustering takes place in the Senate, not here.
I'm not filibustering. I'm trying to answer your question.
You're trying. Let's go on to the next question. With regard to Iran, can you assure us that you will continue sanctions on Iran until they verifiably agree to abandon all enrichment? That's a yes or no question.
No, it's not.
Well, can you give me a yes or no, or should I go on to the next question?
We believe that Iran should not be allowed to enrich uranium. Correct.
You believe that it should, I
Yeah,
believe,
we believe that an acceptable deal with Iran is one in which they cannot enrich, because if they can enrich, they can weaponize.
I know why we don't want, I asked you, will we continue the sanctions until they verifiably agree to get rid of
Oh, you have no worry about us. The worry was the previous administration. This administration has
Your
been very...
refusal to give me an answer is loud and clear.
No, well, I'd like
is
to answer your
reclaiming my time. Mr. Chair, you told us about all these wonderful business deals that were announced in the Middle East. It's reminiscent of the first year of the first term of Donald Trump, where he announced a $10 billion investment by Foxconn in Wisconsin. It is still an empty field. I am sure that the only deals announced in the Middle East that will actually happen were the bribery deals, the $400 million plane and the $2 billion Abu Dhabi will put into the cryptocurrency sponsored by Mr. Trump. TikTok. Mr. Secretary, you led the effort to say that it shouldn't be controlled by the Chinese Communist Party. We passed a law with your help. That law requires that we ban TikTok now because all of the expiration dates have expired. But instead, we saw Chinese interests affiliated with TikTok transfer $300 million into the Trump coin, which is a pure gift. It's $300 million for nothing but monopoly money. And so there's a word in Mandarin for this. It's called bribery. And it raises the question that I'll ask you to respond to for the record, and that is there any statute this administration will not violate for a $300 million Chinese bribe? We next focus on USAID. Musk gutted it. He said no one died as a result. Do you agree that no one has died yet as a result of the chainsawing of USAID? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, the question is, has anyone what?
Has anyone in the world died because of what Elon Musk did?
Listen.
Yes or no, reclaiming my time. If you won't answer, that's a loud answer.
No one has died because of USAID.
The people who have died as a result of cutting off the oxygen of a woman in Burma and denying HIV/AIDS treatment to those in Africa. They are dead now at the hands of Elon Musk and his co-conspirators.
Chair now recognizes Representative Wilson from South Carolina.
So let me just talk to you about the goal here. Our foreign policy has to once again return to the national interests. That's what it needs to be built on. We need to define what the national interest is. What is good for America? That doesn't mean we don't care about the world. That doesn't mean we don't care about great causes on this planet. But it means that when it comes to the conduct of foreign policy, whether it's the policies we stake out or the dollars we're spending, it has to be aligned to a defined national interest. What is in it for America? Now, you could argue that alliances are in it for America. You can argue, and we can, that in some cases humanitarian assistance or development assistance and all these sorts of things are in our national interest. And we're going to continue to make that argument. We are going to continue to be the world's most generous provider of humanitarian assistance, of food assistance, of development assistance, way more than any other country. We already are, and we're going to continue to be. But we're going to do it differently. We're going to do it differently, and we have to do it differently because we are engaged in a very different world than the one that existed 30 years ago or 40 years ago or in some places 50 years ago when some of these programs were set up. So there are two things that I want to focus on today in the 3 minutes that I have or less here with you. Obviously, we'll get into your questions. The first is the reorganization of the State Department. It is not designed to either cripple the department or in any way. It's not even a cost savings endeavor. It is more about being able to deliver results in a better way. What we want to empower is our regional bureaus and our embassies. Here's how I want this. This is how we want this to work. We want to be able to go to our, let me back up. The most important thing I read every single day, every morning I get a book with 10 or 15 cables from our embassies around the world. The best ideas, the best innovations that I get from our building, and this is not disrespectful to the people working here in Washington, is from the embassies and from the cables. They are identifying problems and opportunities well in advance of some memo that works its way to me. We want to get back to a situation where we are empowering ideas and action at the embassy level and through our regional bureaus. Those are literally the front lines of American diplomacy. And so we have structured a State Department that can deliver on that. The second thing, and included in is to understand the full toolbox available to us to advance the national interests. And in the past, unfortunately, humanitarian assistance and development assistance and AID and what the State Department does have in some cases been unrelated, in other cases have found themselves to be in conflict. So what I want and what we want is for our regional bureaus to have available to them aid, diplomacy, economic development, all of these different tools in the toolbox of statecraft and tailored to the specific country and or region based on our national interest. That's what we seek to deliver on. And that's why we Secretary of State, multiple Secretaries of State, starting with Condoleezza Rice, I believe Secretary Albright herself, and others privately, have wanted to bring AID and all of it underneath the fold of the State Department so that aid is provided through the context of our broader foreign policy. And I want to be frank with you about this as well. There are a lot of great causes in the world, but we don't have unlimited resources. We never have and we never will. And even though we spend more than anybody else, these resources have to be tailored as part of a broader strategy. And frankly, they have to have some return on the United States as well. There are countries in this world where we've invested a lot of money, I mean a lot of money, in humanitarian assistance, even in development assistance. And so you go and you hear about these countries, we feed people, we take care of their medical systems, we even help them build their security services, but all the minerals contracts are with China, all of the other benefits are with China. There's got to be some situation here where we say, hold on a second, there has to be some relationship between the amount of help we give and what the United States is getting out of it. That includes their votes in international organizations. There are countries we have poured billions of dollars into over the year who consistently vote against our interests in international relations. You know who doesn't do that? You know who doesn't tolerate that? China doesn't tolerate that. They don't tolerate that. All of their help is leveraged. By the way, all of their help is primarily loans. So they lend you money that you pay them back so you can hire Chinese companies to do work in their country with Chinese workers. That's what they call aid. And that's what they still call aid. So the purpose here is to structure a State Department and ultimately that can deliver on the national interest of the United States, driven at our regional bureaus. We are not withdrawing from the world. We are not withdrawing from foreign aid, but we're going to engage in the world and we're going to conduct foreign aid and foreign assistance in a way that furthers the national interest. Not only do I look forward to working with you, I have to work with you because you are the appropriators and you are the ones that write the budgets and you are the appropriations bills. And by the way, we're welcome to taking input through this process. We need that input because our intention here is to leave something behind that is good, not something that is counterproductive or in some ways does something unintended that's negative.
Let's talk about the other news today, Lisa, and that is the deportation flight of a couple of immigrants from this country to South Sudan. Fill us in.
So, Katie, yesterday, the government took a flight of 8 immigrants who had final orders of deportation, meaning an immigration judge had ruled that they were eligible to be deported. Usually those orders list the countries that they are to be deported to. And a federal judge in Massachusetts had previously ruled in April that the administration could not send immigrants with final deportation orders to countries not listed in their orders unless and until 2 things happen. 1, you had to give them notice in a language that they understood. And 2, you had to give them a meaningful opportunity to be heard as to their fear of persecution or torture and the country to which they were being sent. Notwithstanding that, evidence has now been presented to this same judge that his order was violated because these folks were given about 17 hours of notice before being boarded on a plane and taken to South Sudan, where none of these folks are nationals. They are all nationals of East Asian countries, specifically Laos and Vietnam. And there was this order in place that said you couldn't do this without meaningful notice and an opportunity to be heard.
What is the recourse?
The recourse here is hard to determine, right? Because they are now in this other country. However, the judge is telling the Department of Homeland Security, you may not let these people out of your custody. You need to maintain custody of them. And of course, the Department of Homeland Security, at least through its political spokesperson, is saying South Sudan isn't necessarily the final stop for these folks, but she won't disclose where it is that they are supposed to be going. The judge, Brian Murphy, today, according to our colleague Gary Grumbach at NBC, was absolutely apoplectic about this, making clear, in his view, in no uncertain terms, his order was violated and that he needs to get to the heart of who was in contempt of his order and whether or not there are going to be criminal sanctions for that contempt of his order.
Julia, why South Sudan?
Sudan, well, according to the DHS press secretary today, she said that these are uniquely barbaric individuals and that no other country on earth would take them. And when I asked the ICE director, acting ICE director Todd Lyons, if they had determined that South Sudan was indeed a safe country, because that is usually, that's what they were saying, that in order to not deport someone to their country of origin, you have to find a safe third country. They said, we'll leave that up to the State Department. Of course, South Sudan is a war-torn country. The State Department has a level 4 travel advisory where they
Helipod launch initiated.
Today, the light of liberty will place the skies of this world once more.
Hopefully this doesn't lag. We'll see. Already doesn't sound great.
Requesting entry.
Setting down sentry. Requesting sentry. Dropping a pin. East. 100 meters.
Requesting one.
Five and we're in our head. Reinforcing. Request approved. Deploy reinforcements.
Point me to the enemy.
Calling down a sentry.
Calling down a sentry.
I think this might... I don't know if anyone can see, if anyone's watching. Let me know how it sounds, how the performance sounds just through the capture alone.
Our citizens depend on you for their safety. Tagging map.
This does not sound great to me. I may have to switch it to the old way.
Requesting sentry. Marking location. Sample. Marking location. Our citizens depend on you for their safety. Reinforcing. Tagging location. lives were in our hands. Calling in reinforcements!
Requesting sentry.
Sending down sentry.
New mag. I got the terminal. Not today.
Sample collect.
Helldiver's never die.
Dropping a pin, northeast, 50 meters.
Engaging terminal.
Mission map updated. Freedom marches onward, thanks to you. You may proceed to extraction.
Orbital inbound.
You must not allow our civilians to perish. Requesting orbital.
Vehicle. East.
5 minutes out. We can't stay this low much longer, Helldiver. Orbital inbound.
Calling down a sentry. Illuminate. East. New bag. That's called democracy.
Calling down a sentry. Requesting sentry.
There it is.
Squid!
Vehicle.
Reinforcing!
my goodness. How bad does it sound? Can anyone confirm if it sounds like shit to them too? Or only for me?
Requesting air support. 1 minute remains. Destroyer departure imminent. Requesting orbital.
Dropping a pin. Speed 300 meters.
Sending in eagle.
Requesting sentry. Calling down a sentry. Get up!
Calling in reinforcements. Half reinforcement budget remaining. Request approved. Reinforcements have been launched. Super destroyer leaving low orbit. Emergency extraction shuttle deployed.
Burn it forever!
ETA T-minus 1 minute, 30 seconds. ETA T-minus 1 minute. ETA T-minus 30 seconds. ETA T-minus 20 seconds. ETA T-minus 10 seconds.
Last reload.
Pelican 1 approaching pickup. Countdown initiated. Stand by for takeoff.
How bad does it
Extraction
sound?
complete. Pelican 1 beginning ascent.
Anybody?
You will forever be remembered as heroes of this metropolis.
always good to have another hero on board. Many sacrifices were made. We will never forget. We have to defend Super Earth.
Eldiver, the Super Destroyer is ready for your next mission. The hour of our next victory rapidly approaches.
And launch OBS because I assume it's gonna run better. Nobody wants to tell me. Oh my goodness. So much is happening right now. What is happening? I don't know what's happening over here. There are 2 instances of OBS launched right now? That's probably what's going on, right? Aha. Wait, I'm gonna flip to OBS. Hopefully it runs better, but I couldn't tell you if it will.